Hi everyone. Um, I'm, I guess I've been on the Stoa ever since COVID began. Um, and my background is, I think pretty much since 2016, I've been researching humane technology and persuasive technology and went on to start a company for like a habit forming app sort of. And then worked with the Center for Humane Technology with Tristan Harrison and team for a while, and also worked on the daylight computer, where actually Peter and I briefly overlapped. And so you'll see some of these themes really shape the themes of this presentation. Mm, so yeah, cultural evolution, competitive wisdom, and the third timeline. And there's sort of three parts. There's a meta worldview that I want to share, and it's based around this question of power and wisdom and the playing field of cultural evolution. And then there's my interpretation of the three timelines, which I think are different from Peter's. Same starting point, but different conclusions. And then sensing into that third timeline. And I'm sort of wildly gesturing here at a bigger picture. This morning, this presentation was like 120 slides. I've cut down quite a bit, but buckle up, it's going to be intense. So, a worldview, as I understand it, needs to do a couple of things. It orients us in human history. It sort of tells a story of the past and the future. It offers us a moral compass, tells us a story of good and bad, and define value and progress. And ultimately, by doing that, give us a story of work. Tell us a story of what's the work that we should do or that is to be done. And the following is trying to sort of offer some of that. And some simple questions that are part of that is like, what's true? What's good? What's bad? How do we know? How should we live? And what's the work to be done? And then how do we win? And this last one is really the one that I think is often overlooked and that I want to put attention on today. And so I think the core question of my work as I'm holding it today is like, what would it take to bend the arc of history towards a viable, life-affirming civilization? And that will make more sense in just a second. But just to briefly recap where Peter left us off last week, we have techno-pessimism and the collapse timeline. We have
Well,
techno-optimism. Yeah.
are you moving your slides? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
We still see your like the worldview,
Oh, that's unfortunate.
cultural evolution, competitive wisdom, and the third
You
timeline.
missed so much. Can you see it now?
Yes, I see that my slide.
Beautiful. Do you see the next one too?
No, now the techno pessimism, yeah, the forum, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Um, right. The techno pessimist timeline, the techno optimist timeline, and then solar punk and archaeofuturism sort of as candidates for the third timeline. And there's a lot of good stuff in here that unfortunately that I would love to dive in, but I think I want to zoom out a bit and look at okay, we have these three timelines and we have these different worldviews, but there is a hard problem with worldview studies, which is winning, right? Worldviews compete and they exist on a playing field. And so I want to try and sketch out what that playing field is as I see it. Uh, and it's sort of the vertical axis is one of power, and the horizontal one is one of wisdom. And that can sort of extend into you know, power can be conferred through technology, through intelligence. It's sort of concerned with means, not ends. And game theory is really the way to win that dimension. Whereas wisdom is more concerned with consciousness and care and more with ends than with means and with ethics and morality. And the opposite of that is sort of the degeneracy and addiction and ignorance and extraction, sort of the lower angels of our nature, whereas the lower end of this map is sort of one of disempowerment and in evolutionary terms, just like unfitness, right? Maladaptive things that don't make it through the totality of how humans do things. And in binary terms, it's like good and bad or good and evil, and then winning and losing. And so we can map this, I think, in a way where we see techno-optimism in the top left, it's sort of it's winning clearly, and technology and intelligence confers power, but it is at the cost of extraction, toxicity, uh, addiction, and so on. And the sort of the main dynamic to be concerned there with is one of like runaway technology, where the techno-capital machine just takes over more and more momentum, and human agency sort of falls to the side. And then limbic capitalism, where the human where human agency is just fundamentally eroded. And then we can also see the bottom right, where we have wisdom but not necessarily power, which in other places I call the hippie Buddhist Luddite complex, sort of like having insight but not playing games of power in a way that would meaningfully change the trajectory of the world. Um, and so I've previously wrote about this. It's called Alignment at Large on my Substack. And it's turned out to be a really useful map for understanding a lot of the dynamics at hand. So there is something where if we're just in a game of power, then game theory is sort of the ultimate basis for our actions, and it requires a certain psychopathy to win, and there's a lot of dynamics that make sense, and there's different attractor points of like ecological collapse and sort of global city that encompasses everything, as well as authoritarian dystopia, all kind of fit into this runaway technology direction. And then in the bottom left, we see the limbic capitalism, sort of engagement maximization and A/B testing addiction, sort of this race to the bottom of the brainstem. And then again in the bottom right, we see the hippies, the Luddites, the Unabomber Manifesto, and so on. And so the question mark is really what's in the upper right quadrant? What's the kind of coordination? What are the kind of games that we can play to orient towards a life-affirming civilization and sort of a flourishing future? And so from that perspective, I think the techno-pessimism and collapse is not really a timeline that anyone is like it's not set up to be winning on this playing field. And so I don't think it's useful, like I don't think there's a metic tribe really rooting for this, and people are not really, it's not really what people want, what people are working towards. Whereas techno-optimism, I think, offers us a couple different attractor points in this. One of them is transhumanism. So the kind of Brian Johnson, don't die, technology, replacing our nature more and more. Uh, and the other one is limbic capitalism, right? This black hole of slop, where AI girlfriends and sex bots that Peter likes to write about, and the whole thing just gets worse and worse and more immersive, and it's eroding human agency at the deepest level. And if anyone has seen Wall-E, that's the kind of sort of before we get to the gray alien future, I think we get to a Wall-E future where humans are just entirely disempowered and dehumanized in that way. There are two other ones, which is sort of the runaway techno-capital. One of them is this concept of a ecumenopolis, this like global, city. Then things like the sort of robot takeover and this kind of stuff. And then, of course, the problem of misaligned AI as sort of an alien intelligence and turning everything under the sun into GPU clusters. And then the fourth one is sort of authoritarian dystopia with social credit and mass surveillance. Um, and all of these are pretty powerful, right? Just in terms of pure power, like obviously there's questionable wisdom in all of them, and the vibes are off. And for many different reasons, we can say this is not good, and yet they are winning, right? And it is this yet they are winning that we need to be concerned about, and that we need to look at our own theories of change and be like, okay, how the fuck do we actually win, right? And so in that context, I think solar punk, I love the vibes, but it is fundamentally naive. It is fundamentally a sort of very online left-wing phenomenon that I don't think is very grounded in the realities of most people in the world today. And it's not very it's very bypassing and so on. And archaeofuturism, honestly, I'm still struggling to I'm still sort of trying to situate it in the West and in the games that are being played there. But this is sort of the big question is like, how does wisdom win on this playing field? And we can map it, transhumanism on the top left, limbic capitalism in the bottom left, and then we have the hippies in the bottom right, and collapse sort of just all the way at the bottom. And that and these other sort of techno-optimist possibilities in the top left. I should say it's probably good to like give a bit more like paint a picture of what the techno-optimists think the future is actually going to be like. But given the dynamics of the playing field, I think they're missing a bunch of fundamental misalignment that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you can't have a like optimistic future. And so the bottom right is really this problem of like it's not going to make it. And I think it's been really useful to think about like bottom right quadrant vibes. So like whenever you play games and whenever you see someone play games or talk about their worldview, it's like, is it oriented towards winning, or is it oriented towards like moral posturing? And we can see this map to the question of wise agency and foolish agency, and also sort of NPCs and the spiritual bypassing. Um, and yeah, I've talked about all of these things. And so it's really for me the point of worldview studies is to figure out what does evolutionarily fit wisdom look like. Okay. And from there, these are the three timelines as I see them. We have because it's sort of there's like different developmental pathways for us as humans. One of them is the transhuman. One of the sub is the subhuman of the Wall-E timeline, sort of. And then the third one is for me the question of how do we and this is also in terms of like techno-realism and the resolving the evolutionary mismatch between technology and our humanity. It's like, how do we start with human bodies, human health, and sort of the ergonomics and the prerequisites for agency and for wisdom. And it's from that perspective that I want to look at the third timeline. And so I don't know if any of you watched The Social Dilemma, but in there's this beautiful quote from Justin Rosenstein, uh, where he says, we live in a world where a tree is worth more financially dead than alive, and where now this extraction, this economic logic of extraction is now oriented towards the human body, the human mind, and where we are being mined. And I think it's this it's in this context that I think we can find opportunities for offering people ways of orienting towards their own agency and orienting towards their own consciousness. Uh, and as you can see, Peter, I've took the liberty to sort of flip around your axes and map the wise agency compass onto this playing field. Um, and we see, the NPCs are in the bottom left, the spiritual bypasses on the bottom right, agentic fools on the top left, and agentic sages in the top right. And it's like where what do the games look like? What are the market opportunities in the top right for us to play? Uh, and I think again this like mismatch between the godlike technology that we're playing with or that is playing with us and our Paleolithic emotions is a major opportunity, um, because we see this like engineered addiction, persuasive technology taking away our agency, right? If we have like 2 billion people spending 8 hours a day watching short form video, that's incredibly potent, especially at the ages of like, 6 to 12. It's like that's just not gonna bring forward a human population that has any meaningful notion of agency or capacity for self-determination. And so it goes back to marketing and demand engineering. And maybe some of you are familiar with the work of Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And the whole point of this is like it's in the interest of techno capital, in the interest of corporations to maximize the power asymmetry in demand engineering. And it started as sort of, madman type, relatively, innocent marketing, and has turned into this massive industry that's accelerating, right? That's continuing to innovate. And so I think it's in this modern struggle that it creates, this struggle to, have some kind of agency over our lives, that I think there's a whole world of practices, of beliefs, of community, of products and services that can change the game for us. And Peter, how much more time do I have?
About 5 more minutes.
Beautiful. Uh, because so if we can pay attention, we can't value anything at all, right? In some way, attention is really the substrate for any kind of meaningful agency, any kind of wisdom, any kind of self-discernment. And I call this phenomenon like neurological nihilism, where if we're at the deepest neurological level being conditioned to just keep scrolling, then we're not going to be able to direct our lives in a way that is meaningful, or that gives us any kind of power. And so one way of looking, or one interpretation of evolutionarily fit wisdom is like finding product market fit for more enlightened ways of being. And so I don't know how many of you are familiar with like startup speak, but it's like product market fit is if you have a product and the market is like buying it and eager to buy it. Um, and I think this sort of figuring out what the lifestyle is that resolves the modern struggle, figuring out what humans need in order to be more shielded from all of the toxicity and all of the adversarial stuff in our environment will help. I think there's a massive opportunity there. Um, and so in some way, the religion that isn't a religion, could be an ecosystem of highly profitable and influential companies that have a sort of mission, or I mean, it sounds like a lot like just like a Silicon Valley kind of speak, but in a very genuine sense, like a pedagogical mission, where it's like if we refuse to just take what people want as the basis for how to play in the market, and instead sort of take all of this understanding that someone like John Vervaeke offers us of how to orient towards a more meaningful life, then I think there's a lot of opportunity uh, to take, to start companies in that space, to bring products to market that help people genuinely live better, and from there, sort of have a positive feedback loop that is not aimed at extraction, but at genuine value creation. And so one example, I call this amber living. Maybe some of you are familiar with the daylight computer. But there's all kinds of toxicity, from the food that we eat, to the water, to the physical care products, to the polyester clothing, to the EMF radiation, to the artificial light at night. And all of this stuff is messing with our nervous system, dysregulating it. And so just starting from a place of like holistic, natural health, and removing all of the toxicity, I think gives us means we don't need as much of the Brian Johnson type biohacking stuff, because we're just naturally more healthy and more sovereign with our attention. And part of this is like paper-like computers, the daylight, things that take us offline, things that take us to the analog. I think there's a reason why there's so much nostalgia around these things. And the sort of forest bathing, being in nature, journaling, running clubs being this massive phenomenon, and the sort of just the desire to go out and go to a hut in the woods, or to go start a homestead. And I think all of these things are connected to this necessity of reclaiming our agency and our attention, and from there the basis for a self-determined life. And uh, I brought this little provocation for the end. Maybe you know the MIT or this article, "If you're so smart, why aren't you rich? Turns out you're fucking stupid." And I turned it to, "If you're so wise, why aren't you winning? Turns out you're fucking foolish." Um, and inspiration and education, I think, for us to be found in surprising places. From maybe there's this talk with Shamath at Stanford where he talks about, at the end of the day, it is a competition of worldviews, and your number one priority is to get the fucking money. Because if you have a point of view that matters and you want to reflect it in the world, you need the capital to do that. And you know, going viral is part of the game. So I think there's obviously like a lot of deeper sort of questions about the different economic logics and building the different systems in which different ways of playing can win. But at the same time, I think this moment really asks for a kind of realism about how do we play games that can actually, in a way that we can actually win. And lastly, there's this YC slogan of Y Combinator, this Silicon Valley startup accelerator, make something people want. And I think there's an opportunity to make something people want to want. So moving from revealed preferences to like some kind of deeper idea of what's actually good for us. What do we really want? Um, what's true, good, and beautiful? And yeah, that's the rough sketch. And this is my Substack where you can read more on these things. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Good round of applause to Welf. That was a fun presentation. Um, yeah, and if you have any shares or thoughts or questions, just pop in the chat so Welf can read them. And I'll have a question. So, like you, out of everyone I know, you're probably the guy that's plugged in most with the technology, the humane tech that's out there. Where are you? I can't see you. Oh, yeah, there you are. And I just got like a light phone. You probably have like three of these.
Nice.
And then we were working at Daylight Computers. Actually, I have Cheryl's article up here. Um, this is great. It's great technology. And when you and I were at Daylight, there was a lot of talk about not just having this technology, but combining it with psychotechnology, and then having kind of like almost like rituals, like offered with the product, and kind of like that's like the future of a lot of these things. And so I wonder what your present thought is with there, like how do we have these like healthy or healthier technologies combined with these psychotechnologies that actually help us be more present in our use of them?
Um, I mean, that's I don't know. It's like community living certainly is, I think, is a big picture because if you're just like isolated, then like environments where you're by default connected with people, that's probably a good idea. There's all kinds of meditation things that can be useful. But I think really over the years I've become more and more, I've sort of gone down the stack of just going into the body and going into the physiology. And like I now have, amber light bulbs at home. And if I go out into the world without these glasses, I'm like, it's really bright at night and it's not good for my nervous system. Um, so I think just on a physical level, there's a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, and when you said community, that comes up because if you're at a really good party, no one's on their phone. Everyone's just with one another. Cool. So thank you, Welf.
Thank you.
And put your thoughts, questions, shares in the chat, and we'll take 3 minutes just to collect those and reground ourselves for the next presentation.